G'day mates, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing everything I've learned from watching FNCS for the last 2 weeks so I can hopefully help you, or you might just enjoy hearing some of my thoughts on the topic, because I don't think there's anyone who's watched more FNCS than me now in the last 2 weeks. I've watched every single OCE, NA East, NA West, and half the EU games as well, so I've picked up a thing or two. So I'm going to be talking about some of the best drop spots, some of the best loadouts, some of the best strategies when it comes to when to play low, when to play height, how the best teams are rotating, how are they taking high ground, just pretty much everything you could need to know if you're going into the last week of FNCS qualifiers and the semis, and just if you've been watching and you want to have a better idea of what teams are doing and why they're doing it. Just quickly before we jump into today's video, on the topic of watching these games, I stream all of them live on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Aussie Antics. If you haven't already, check it out, chuck it a follow. I'll be live for all the games like I said, and just playing arena and other fun stuff as well. I think the most fitting spot to start is where the game starts, which is drop spots. I've already done a lot of videos on drop spots, but I will give you my thoughts quickly from what I've seen from other teams and the best drop spots in my opinion right now. So the 3 best drop spots are Caddy Corners, Misty Meadows, and Dirty Docks. The reason for that being is they have guaranteed gold upgrade NPCs, and they just have guaranteed quests in general. So no matter what round it is, whether it's round 1, 2, 3, or 4, those are all pivotal things that if you utilize, you will do phenomenally well. They have their own strengths as well outside of that. Caddy Corners obviously has guaranteed shield from all the food, and then you get peppers, one of the only forms of carryable mobility right now. Misty Meadows, you have guaranteed dragon shotgun, so if you want to play ultra low ground as your playstyle, which I'll talk about later, don't worry, that's a big bonus. Dirty Docks is just insane. You have 2 NPCs. A lot of the times one of them will sell you either purple lever action shotguns or purple scars, so you can get a purple scar or a purple lever for every member in your team for 300 gold. You can farm the sharks for RPGs, just insane stuff. Obviously as well, don't freak out, there are so many other good drops as well that you can make work if you know how to play them. Hydro Dam being a big one if you really want to play for the RPG. If your plan is going to be to psycho height, that's going to be your identified strategy, and again later in the video I'll talk about strategies. You also have Ruckus that gives you good, Ruckus is the RPG at Hydro Dam, will also give you really good shotguns. You can quite often buy purple levers from him as well. You have the Bandolier, which is near Flush Factory, which is an NPC that also sells shotguns, which is insane. You have the Ghost Mushrooms you can use to gain shield. You have other drops like Craggy Cliffs. If you get Fish Sticks, you also have guaranteed NPC upgrades and guaranteed gold, but he doesn't spawn there every game. You have the Shield Barrels. You see where I'm going. Every drop is viable, but in my opinion, those are like the 5 or 6 main ones. Sweaty Sands is big with lots of loot, but I don't like fighting it too well. But right now, if you're coming into the last week and you haven't already done well before, and you don't already have a good drop spot, especially if you are good fighters, I would highly recommend either alphaing up Misty Meadows or Dirty Docks. Play some duo and trio arena this week, learn how to fight it with your teammates, or even play some solos, learn how to fight it yourself. Just learn the terrain, practice those drop spots, because they'll be good in every single level. If you are the kind of player who's making it to round 3 and especially round 4, you are usually going to have a fight on your team against a good team, but a lot of the good teams have already qualified through, so this is your chances to get a good drop spot and really get your consistency points up. If you are a more passive team and you don't like going the big POIs, I'd massively recommend learning how to do the Kami split. If you go to any tournament, any trio tournament the Kami's team has played on EU, go to the compete tab. If you're on PC, go and access the replay files and watch those. If you're on console though, try and find one of your friends that's on PC. Maybe they can record the game, send you the files. I'm sorry it doesn't work on console, but I can show you a map here of how the Kami split works. It's very simple. It's this giant area of map that's right between, pretty much in between Dirty Docks and Coliseum, and then runs all the way down to Lazy Lake. So you have kind of, you know, you have the Henchman House, you have the bridge, you have the Flopper Lake, all this kind of stuff is all included. How you split the drop is really up to you in the games. You'll have to play some arena, play some tournament games to really learn how to figure it out, especially some scrims, because you don't want to drop by yourself and have 3 people landing on one of your players. But once you learn how to identify when people are flying in, where they're going, you'll be able to figure out out which parts of the Kami split you can get. And even then, if you can't get all of it, say like maybe a team's dropping the bridge, you'll still be able to get a lot of loot by cutting back a little bit and figuring out what you can do in that area. It is pretty much one of the best drops on the map right now, and especially in round 1 and round 2, teams are usually focused on going the big major POIs. There's not a lot of teams that are going split drops, and if they are, like I just said with, you know, catching one of them out, if you learn how to play this split well, you can easily abuse it by having 3 of you land on 1 or 2 of their opponent's split, eliminate them, and then you get all the loot and you started off with free elimination points. So that would be my recommendation of a split drop if you don't want to go one of the major POIs. Before I talk about more specific strategies when it comes to endgame, the next thing I wanted to talk about was loadouts. Right now, the most pivotal, the most decisive factor in teams doing well right now in Trio FNCS is sniper rifles. If there is someone on your team who is good with a sniper rifle, you have the most ridiculous advantage right now. I'm talking getting an instant knock so you can push a fight, being able to get storm surge, being able to pressure endgame so you can take height. There is just so many things that make the sniper so important, but the issue I see too many teams doing is having that ego and having that arrogance over who runs the sniper. There should only be 1, maybe 2 people maximum running the snipers, especially in open lobbies. If you have someone on your team who can consistently hit at least body, but hopefully headshot snipes on engagements, let them have the sniper. Don't all 3 of you carry a sniper. Not just because of ammo limitations, but also because of inventory. Because when I'm going to talk about loadouts now, you don't need everyone to have a sniper. Drop the ego, figure out who on your team has the best sniper rifle aim, let them handle it, because the other thing is you need to start running a harpoon. It is so pivotal right now, with even round 1 and 2 in the big regions like EU and NA East having insanely stacked games with a lack of carryable mobility, so having no rift fish, having no shockwaves, only having bounces. Material is everything, and if one of your players is not carrying a harpoon, you're at a massive disadvantage. And mainly the reason I see people carrying this is because they're trying to have 3 people carrying sniper rifles. Make sure your support player is carrying the harpoon, the player who's not going to be making as many engagements, the one who's not going to be making sniper plays for high ground, and the player who's not really going to be going for the heal offs. That's who you want to be carrying the harpoon. Now, lastly as well, someone in your team should be carrying triple meds. I don't want to see anyone on your team carrying SMG unless it's your last option. Cabbages, peppers, medkits, floppers, literally anything. You should be carrying triple meds of any kind over SMGs. Currently in FNCS, the SMG is just not necessary. You should be running an AR, shotgun, triple meds, or AR, shotgun, harpoon, double meds, or AR, shotgun, sniper, double meds. That should be the ideal loadout for each member of your trio. As for rotations, that is way too big of a topic for me to try and cover in just this part of the video. All I want to recommend though is the current meta for rotations. As simple as it is, some games it'll change on very minute things, but this will account for almost every game. The formula is so simple. Try to rotate early if you can, especially in those final rounds, those stacked rounds. Don't spend forever looting. I'm watching way too many teams farm way too long, trying to cap every single material, trying to get every single bit of loot, every bit of ammo. They end up rotating late. They burn through all the extra material they had. They burn through all their ammo, having to force storm surge to when they shouldn't have to, rather than just getting in. Try to rotate a little bit earlier to center of first and then start farming. If you have good map knowledge and say you're like, okay guys, we've maxed out our wood, we have decent brick, but we need metal. Try to find somewhere center of first that has a bit more material. If you time your drop properly, you shouldn't have to do this anyway. You should have enough time to farm your material before you leave, but prioritize getting center of first with decent mats rather than trying to rotate really late with max mats. So the formula is so simple for zones right now. Center of first zone, center of second zone, center of third zone, edge of fourth zone. That's the big one. I'm seeing way too many people try to go center of fourth. You don't have shockwaves, you don't have any other mobility. So if you go center of fourth, that means you're guaranteed to not get half zone. I know you can just bounce it to it, which is a decent strategy, but the amount of mats in good lobbies you're gonna burn try to getting to the edge of that zone to set up when you could have already been set up and now you're just gonna get sprayed. I would rather have a max distance half than always setting up center of fourth, hoping knowing that I'll get close to 5th and never actually getting it. For half the times that you'll get zone compared to half the times that you won't, it's worth going on the edge. So I'll make that clear again. Center of first zone, center of second zone, center of third zone, which will then leave you on the edge of 4th or very close to it, and then stay edge of 4th so you have a chance to pull 5th zone, which is half-half. Now, the big one, how are you going to play your end games? When are you going to go height? When are you going to go low? When are you going to play the middle layers? Now, there is a different strategy for every team. I can tell you a team in every single region that's absolutely popping off doing one, each, or all of these things. I can tell you teams that only ever alpha height and will never even think to go low. I'll tell you teams that only go low and never even think of going height, and teams that play the middle. So it's up to you. It depends on your strengths as a team. If you have players, if you're really, really good at working together, you have ridiculously good chemistry, you like sticking hip to hip and box fighting, work on going low ground. Go the centered edgy commandment strat. It is so underrated right now. Basically, you want to try to get to ultimate low as fast as you can, as long as elevation isn't going up, because if you're on ultimate low and it's going up a mountain, you're just going to get stuck under everyone. So identify when there's a flat zone or a zone that's dropping down elevation, get to ultimate low as fast as you can, and stay together. Don't play 5 or 6 boxes apart. If it's coming up a mountain, don't have someone at the back trying to get refreshes because there's free kills coming up the mountain. Play together at all times on rotating zones. If you're playing ultimate low, you should literally never be more than 1 or 2 boxes away from each other. That's the centered edgy commandment strat. And then once it gets towards those real closeout zones and you have your ultimate low completely under control, that's where all 3 of you have to coordinate. You have to have perfect communication. There's a guy on me, all 3 of you turn around, hit that edit, and destroy them with your shotguns. That's what you want to do. This isn't about sitting back and taking AR peeks and trying to spray, and it's about sticking together and just dominating people on ultimate low. But you do have to be aware, if you stagger too far back, if your whole team falls too far from the zone, you will then lose the front of zone control. A team will jump in front of you, and that's where you lose as well. So as much as you do this, you need to act really quickly. Let's say there's a duo on the back of your tarps. They're right at the very back on rotating zones. You have ultimate low. You call out for your teammates to come help. You open the edit. Maybe you crack one and there's another one healthy. Close off the edit and focus front side. If you're not an ultimate low front side, you are going to die because other teams will be shambles. They'll start dropping down. They'll pin you off, and that's where you'll get knocked. That is the main way to play ultimate low that everyone seems to get wrong. They spread too much, and that's where you have teams fall in between you. You get cut off, and things get confusing and scary. If there's 3 of you sitting in 1 or 2 boxes, it doesn't matter how many players are around you. If you coordinate who you're going for, you will dominate them. The reason why this strategy works so well for centered edgy commandment is because they come out of Misty Meadows, so they always have enough gold to upgrade their shotguns, and usually centered's carrying the dragon shotgun on ultimate low as well. It's, again, figure out a strategy that works for you. Don't have to play like everybody else. Play to your team's strengths. Now, everybody's favorite, high ground. You've heard about it. High ground is so good this season. If you're on high ground, you win every game. Yes, but the saying I often live by is high ground wins games, low and mid ground wins tournaments. Yes, you'll win games on high ground and you'll have memories of, oh man, when we took high ground, that one game we popped off. Yeah, but that was one of 6 games. The other 5 games you tried, you died. You know what I mean? You really need to go for high ground only when it's kind of really available to you, only when you get good zones. Don't try to force it too hard. A lot of the pro teams I'm seeing forcing high ground really, really hard and being like, let's go high ground or nothing, are not working. The only time that works is in round 4, because the round 4 scoring format changes. Half the placement points are given for top 3, and each elimination is worth 2. So having 1 or 2 good games on high ground is enough to place really highly. In the rounds before that, it's just not worth it. High ground is also so much more easily griefable. If you're in rounds 1 and 2 and you're versing worse teams, how many times have you had high ground pretty well secure, and then some kid starts spending 500 mats cranking 90s on your head, using 3 bounce pads and 5 rockets to try and break you out, and then all of you end up dying. You don't win, they don't win. It was a terrible play, but it affected you. So even though they made the wrong play, you still died because of it. That doesn't happen if you're on ultimate low and mid ground. You can have bad players, but it doesn't affect you as much. So I'm not saying don't go for high ground. All the best teams are identifying where half-half is going. They then position themselves on second or height on half-half, so they take height when it's free, but they don't force it if they can't can't get it. Most of the good teams, if they don't get a good half-half or first rotating zone to take high ground, they go low and mid ground, and then they push lower or mid. Most of them don't look to go high ground unless they get a really lucky snipe or the team on high ground is just terrible. They don't force it at all. One of the most guaranteed ways to have really bad consistency with your end game right now is forcing high ground too much. If you do somehow get high ground and you have a good zone for it, if you get it on half-half and you get a max distance first rotating zone, don't suey your whole game. Don't throw your whole game trying to hold it. Bounce her across onto opposite height on the opposite side, crank back up and reestablish it. If there's a team that's going to aggressively hold you there, they're going to spray you, they're going to RPG you, they're sniping at you, learn when to give it up. Just because you have high ground now on half-half does not mean you need to carry it through the rotating zones. Carry it for as long as it's free, but if it's looking a little bit sketchy and you're not getting the zones and you don't have the loadout for it, tell your teammates, hey guys, if we get pressured for this, instantly drop. Instantly dropping off high ground and re-establishing together is a phenomenal way to have saved your mats while you're on the high ground to now play the mid ground with the extra mats you have and still have an insanely good game. Too many teams, once they have height because they got a good zone, think that as soon as someone starts to psycho it, they need to throw their whole game holding it. Drop the ego, drop off high ground. If you have a dumb team or a good team trying to take it from you, you'll still get insane points on mid and low. Obviously, it's not all just about ultimate low or ultimate height. There are a lot of layers in between, and that's when you're going to have to do most of your time learning when to play, learning which layer to go. But again, that topic of video is way too massive for me to try and cover. The only thing I want you to try and work on is with bounce pads in the game right now, don't be afraid if a zone is pulling across to cut the angle up and then bounce her across. So let's say there's a zone here and the next zone's going up over here. Instead of feeling like you have to white line it straight to the zone, if you cut up to the edge and bounce her across in front of everyone, you're going to save so many materials, you're going to avoid so many engagements, and you're going to look so much better off. That's why you can often go from bouncing from the mid-ground layer to the ultimate low and securing it once you're on front side. I see too many teams think that they have to tarp constantly on the white line to the next zone instead of going to dead side and across. Sometimes playing that right hand angle, going to the edge of where the current zone is to almost to storm, and then cutting across is so much better because no one's going to be over there. And then now you can either tarp across, keeping your side free because obviously everyone's only on your left because you've gone to the storm edge, or you bounce her across. It saves so many mass and keeps you so much safer. Also, don't be afraid to take a few ticks of zone to establish a better layer. If you need to build out over a tarp and drop back down into zone for like, you know, 1 or 2 ticks to get ahead of a team, that is so much better off than trying to cut into a tarp or just build straight into a tarp and die because you didn't want to take 1 or 2 ticks of zone. Especially with splashes in the game right now, leading your team like 1 or 2 seconds out into zone is so worth it. How many times have you watched a top tier team where the tarp is at the front side and they'll step out 2 or 3 seconds into zone to build layers across and cut off teams on their layer? Don't be afraid of storm. It's trios. One of your tarpers or maybe 2 of your teammates taking 1 or 2 ticks of zone to establish a good layer is so worth it. Now, I know there are so many other topics I could cover here, but I really just wanted to do a nice overview and just something you guys can listen to and watch to hopefully get you ready for your last chance to qualify for FNCS if you haven't, and just some trends that I'm noticing. Some of this may have sounded basic to you, but I guarantee even at the top level that I'm watching all the way down to opens, people are making these mistakes consistently over and over again, and they're really, really simple. And I don't know, you guys always ask for this kind of guide content. I know it's a little bit different to like VOD reviewing a specific team. If you like this kind of video, please chuck a like on it. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want more or if you want specific in-depth videos on these specific topics, because again, I'm happy to give the content you guys want. It doesn't always have to be all news content. When things are popping off and news is happening, I love breaking it, but I also want to teach you guys some stuff too. I watch a fair bit of Fortnite. I'm not calling myself the smartest guy in the scene. I'm not calling myself a pro, but I notice trends. I get to see what people do right and I get to see what people do wrong. So if you guys are liking the videos and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.